In this video, I go from this to this. And here's where it all started. My journey began out at sea, so I made my way to the shore before I froze to death. After safely making it to dry land, I climbed this hill here to find out what was at the top. And there was a Yale waiting for me at the top. Now the top of this hill was covered in these creatures, so it's going to be a great early source of food and experience. But before killing any Yale, I needed to secure myself some basic tools so I could survive the first day. I picked up 12 stones here off the ground, enough to make 3 cobblestone for a stone pickaxe. However, this requires a crafting table and some sticks. Since you can't punch trees in RLCraft, I had to make a flint hatchet. This was done by first getting some flint from some gravel, and then hitting it on some stone to get flint shards. I then got some sticks from these tree leaves and combined it with my flint shard to make a flint knife. Now I could use this on the grass to get some plant fibre, which I then turned into plant string. And finally, the flint hatchet. Now it was time to chop down my very first tree. I spotted a floating tower in the sky above me, but I don't think we'll be getting up there anytime soon. I then placed my oak logs on the ground and right-clicked them with my hatchet to get planks, as you cannot turn oak logs into planks in your inventory like normal. You can either use an axe like this or a saw. Now that I had the planks, I could now make a wooden pickaxe. Usually when you mine stone blocks, it drops small stones that you have to combine together to make cobblestone. But when mining cobblestone like this, it just gives you straight up cobblestone, so it's very nice indeed. With some cobblestone gathered, I decided to make a few useful weapons and tools. I first made a handle using some string and a stick, and I combined this with cobblestone to make a stone saber, which is extremely good early on as it gives 25% damage reduction when using it. I then went ahead and made a full set of stone tools, and I also made a stone shield, which is made by combining a wooden shield with some stone. This is extremely useful early on, and as you will find out very soon, it stops me from dying multiple times. To finish things off, I made a stone boomerang. A very cheap ranged weapon, but it doesn't always come back. Now I needed some food and some wool to make a sleeping bag so I could sleep through the night. So I killed a few Yale, and we did just that. In the morning I gathered some sand and turned it into glass in a furnace so I could make some glass bottles. I filled up the glass bottles with water and then put them back in the furnace to purify them. I now had a safe supply of drinking water. When I killed this Yale here, a Reaper spawned, but my shield and saber made it very easy to kill it. And not long after the first Reaper spawned, another one spawned. This time an Azure Reaper, a more powerful version of the regular one. I did get hit once, but in the end, it met the same fate. After killing lots of Yale and those Reapers, I now had enough experience to get level 8 defense. This allows me to wield iron armor, so a pretty big milestone early on. Now I spotted this hot air balloon made of wool that was nearby, so I made my way over to it to start harvesting some of the wool, as wool can be made into bandages or turned into string to trade with villagers. It did turn out though that there was a skeleton living inside, and he came out to say hello. I then noticed that there were some sirens in the distance, so I had to be very careful that I didn't get too close, or they could lure me into my death with their siren song. Now it was time to start harvesting the wool. After gathering some wool, I then made some bandages. These are required because having a full hunger bar in RLCraft does not replenish your health. I made my way back up the hill here and started having a look around this forest to see what I could find. I found a pixen flying around, so I started throwing my boomerang at it. These drop glowstone dust, which is great for making torches that are already lit. As I was searching through this forest, I came across a pack of wolves. I had 12 bones on me this point, so I wanted to see how many of them I could tame. And this first wolf took 8 bones to tame. That's a lot of bones. I managed to tame the second wolf with 1 bone, but unfortunately I wasn't able to tame the third one. I continued on my journey, now with a couple of companions. After letting my wolves finish off this Yale here, I got enough experience to get level 4 mining, which meant I could now mine iron ore, and I managed to find some nearby. I was trying to be very careful as geonaths have a chance of spawning when mining ores. With all the iron mined, I then noticed there was a wolf pup running around, and it turned out the wolves had breeded. I had no idea. It was time to go to sleep for the night, and in the morning I started smelting my iron ore, which I then turned into some iron armour. While I was exploring, I spotted a village in the distance, so I made my way over there. I did encounter a crake on the way though, but my wolves dealt with him pretty quickly. It had one of the greatest village buildings you can get. Just look at all this incredible gear. Multiple sets of armour and weapons, including diamond, and lots of anvils too. I decided that this was going to be my base, so I rearranged things a little bit. When stepping outside, there was a rock flying around. Once it had managed to trap itself, I decided to take it out. I then traded some of the wheat that I had found in the village with a villager here to get some emeralds and XP, which meant that I could now get level 6 attack, only 2 points away from being able to wield iron weapons. In one of the village buildings, I found loads of iron tools, so I started smelting them down into iron nuggets, which I turned into a couple of bars. My wolf pack was starting to grow in numbers, and this got out of hand quite quickly, as you will see shortly. With my wolf pack well fed, I then turned my attention to making an atlas. I first made a book and quill, and then combined this with a compass I found in the village to make the atlas. To make sure I could find my way back to this new base, I added a marker to the atlas. When leaving the village to continue exploring, I got a massive surprise. Two Feridons ambushed me out of nowhere. My wolves sacrificed themselves to keep me alive. I went upstairs in the house, put a hole in the wall, and started attacking the Feridon from above. I had lost 4 wolves from the attack. It was a sad day indeed, but a couple did survive. The leather from the Feridon meant that I now had enough to make a canteen, and it also gave me the experience required to get level 8 attack. I could now wield iron weapons. With an iron sword in hand, I set out with my remaining wolves to see what I could find. I came across another wolf pack, so I tamed as many as I could. While I was doing this, I spotted a red dragon in the sky, so I made sure to head in the opposite direction, as one step too close to that dragon would be the end of me. After continuing my search through the forest, I found this wooden structure, which contained a spider spawner, but fortunately, these were not cave spiders, as cave spiders' poison makes them a lot more lethal. After killing the spiders, I then decided to put more points in agility, where I then unlocked the dodge ability. However, at this time, I did not know how to actually use it, but I do find out later on in the video. I then spotted this large building in the distance, so I made my way over there to check it out. And at this stage of my playthrough, I really should not be going anywhere near a building like this, But here I am anyway, making a bit of a questionable decision. Now this building turned out to be a dungeon. The ground floor was full of vindicators. I thought it was completely safe to attack these, as long as I kept my distance. I thought the half slab on the ground was preventing them from getting to me, but I was so wrong. And just like that, my first death, one-shotted by a vindicator. I headed back there and was able to retrieve all of my items. And after this I decided it was time to move on. This building was far too dangerous. After searching for a while, I managed to find my first battle tower. I went to sleep for the night, and in the morning I made myself an iron saber and an iron shield. I was ready to take on this battle tower. However, each floor of this battle tower was full of holes, making it very easy to fall into a pit of mobs. Which is exactly what I did. I healed myself back up, and I tried again. My wolf pack were tearing everything to shreds. Nothing was getting close to me with them around. I filled in the rest of the holes in the floor here, and then started mining the spawners. I mined one spawner on the ground floor, and then went upstairs and mined 2 more spawners. This gave me a lot of XP. But soon after mining the 3rd spawner, an infernal zombie came up the stairs, and he started shooting fireballs at me. One of my wolves was set on fire, but I was not able to save it in time. I then headed outside to get some healing from a nymph, and increased my defense level to 14. Only 2 more levels required to wield the diamond armor back at the base. I mined another 2 spawners here, and then continued on to the next floor. Where I mined another 2 spawners. I then climbed the final set of stairs to reach the rooftop, where the final 2 spawners were. This last spawner here dropped a medkit, which can be extremely useful if you apply the mending enchantment to it. You basically have an infinite source of healing. After this good find, I jumped off the battle tower and then started tackling the floors underground. But I somehow managed to get myself into a really terrible situation. Instead of going up the stairs, I accidentally went down the stairs into even more danger. Now, I was on my way to get my stuff back, but this Triffid decided to spawn when I destroyed this piece of grass here. My pack of wolves once again saving my life. I watched on from a distance, thinking that my wolves were tearing this Triffid to pieces, but this was not the case. All I could do was stand there as wolf after wolf was massacred. I tried to get further away so they would spawn near me, but it was too late. Only one wolf survived the attack. It was then after this that I decided I was never going to breed wolves again. I had lost too many. I wasn't able to retrieve my gear from the battle tower, so I took the iron armour from the armour stand here, and then I continued exploring, where I discovered a village in this ice biome. Not far from this village, I spotted a sea serpent in this tree here. If I had a good bow and some arrows, this would be a perfect time to take it out, but that will have to wait for another day. I then discovered a massive dungeon, but this is meant for much later on in the game. It is far too dangerous at this point. I continued exploring and then saw this massive structure in the sky. I believe this is a Lysonite dungeon, full of very dangerous creatures. I was finding all kinds of different animals on my travels, like these llamas for example, and they spat at me when I attacked them. After making my way down off this hill, I then found quite a few craigs. One of them was called Nihilus the Abomination. This was a great chance for me to get some good loot here, so I decided to try and kill it. And it dropped a Sharpness 5 book, a brilliant drop. I was also finding lots of different structures, like this giant staircase that probably led down to a dungeon. No thank you. And this campsite here with a few villagers. I looted the chests and then moved on. And that's when I spotted another dragon. This might have been the same red dragon from before, but I'm not sure. I was far away from home at this point, so I was trying to be very careful, but that's when I got a message telling me that the blood moon is rising. All I could do was dig myself into the side of this hill here and wait till morning, as you cannot sleep through a blood moon. In the morning, I cautiously made my exit. I wasn't sure what could still be lurking out there, but it seemed to be safe. I was killing some Macas here for some more XP, but the Alpha decided to protect its herd. I got out of there as fast as I could. Shortly after this, I discovered this building here which had a lot of nice iron gear in it, like another full set of iron armour. When leaving the building though, I quickly found there was an Ent waiting for me outside, but we managed to take care of him. I then spotted this cauldron here, and I thought this would be a great addition to the base, as I can purify water in this. Another structure I managed to find was this one here. It has some wool, iron, gold, and most importantly, some netherrack. Lighting this netherrack on fire underneath my cauldron would be a great way to have a continuous purified water source. It was now time to head home, so I opened my atlas to see where I needed to go. And we managed to make it back safely. I fed my wolf and then started installing the cauldron. I placed the netherrack down, set it on fire, and put the cauldron on top. Now I could fill my canteen with purified water. I decided to upgrade my canteen to an iron canteen, which allowed me to carry more water. Now I had level 16 defense at this point, so it was time to equip my diamond armor. And I only needed 3 more agility levels till I could unlock the undershirt. This essentially prevents you from being one-shotted, and you will see it in action later on. I left my base to continue exploring. Now with a full set of diamond armor, I felt a bit safer, so I decided to explore the defiled biome here that was close to the village. When I was killing this purple-eyed spider, I noticed that a few wolves had teleported next to me. These must have been some wolves that were left at the battle tower, and they had teleported to me when I had walked in that direction. I went back to the battle tower with the intention of taking out the bottom floors, and I found this zombie here who appeared to be wearing all the iron armor that I had lost earlier. I made my way down the stairs to clear out the floor below. When I killed this infernal skeleton here, it dropped the Ender Queen's crown, which makes you the Enderman's best friend, and it supposedly also gives you immunity to hypothermia, which I did not know at the time. So yes, a very good find. I continued downstairs to the final floor of the battle tower. But once again, only one wolf made it out alive. The battle tower had now been cleared, and it was time to continue exploring. I managed to spot 3 different dragons all close to each other. And then I also found another one of these craigs. This one was called Drakkar, Dweller of the Night. I built myself a little tower of dirt, and then tried shooting it from above. It fell off the side of the hill, so I went over to finish the job. But the dragon was far too close, so I made a run for it, without realising that I was being chased by Drakkar himself. I managed to kill him, but unfortunately, the fire was too much. I retraced my steps and managed to find my gear again. I was glad that I hadn't lost my diamond armour. Quite close to where I died, I found a village. And this village had a library, a great source of enchanted books. I searched the chests inside and found some nice enchantments, like this mending book here, very useful indeed. I left the village to continue exploring. And I found another one of these camps. But this time the chests had some better loot. Not far from this camp, I then saw this large glass structure full of water, and it had a nether portal inside of it. Useful if I ever want to go to the nether. However, the nether in RLCraft is extremely dangerous, so I won't be going there anytime soon. Opposite from this glass structure was a pit of lava, accompanied by an afrit. Now shields are completely useless against these things, so I definitely should have ran. But here I am, trying to fight one anyway. I placed down some water to put out the flames, and I actually managed to kill it. But just when I thought I was in the clear, another one came after me, and this did not end well for me. I returned to pick up my gear, but I was not fast enough. It had all despawned. This meant I had lost my full set of diamond armour, so I returned back to the base to equip another set of iron armour. After experiencing this setback, I continued exploring the world around me. While I was wandering through this forest here, I was suddenly attacked. And this was a Stymphalian bird. These rapidly fire feathers at you, making it difficult to get close. This one, however, was already low. Shortly after this, I discovered a Lysonite dungeon here, but once again, this is far too dangerous for now. I thought I was safe as I continued wandering through this forest, but just round the corner was a Vindicator. I tried my best to block every attack, knowing that one hit would be fatal, but in the end, it wasn't enough. Not long after this, I was then ambushed by a Lux Crake. This definitely gave me a fright. But this one turned out better. I then came across this large building in the clearing, and it had some villagers inside. Unfortunately though, many of the chests were locked. But I did grab a charged emerald. If you use this when trading with villagers, they will reduce their prices, so not a bad find. Now this building turned out to be on the outskirts of a village, so I took a look to see what I could find. I spotted a horse here, and I thought this would be a great time to make a saddle and tame it. This would definitely make travelling a lot easier. While I was in the middle of doing this though, I was ambushed by a banshee. With the banshee dead, I then tamed the horse and put the saddle on it. And this horse was a fast one. Right next to this village was this underground entrance with a creeper face on the front of it. I stepped on the pressure plates to open the doors, and guess what? There were creepers inside, who would have thought? However, one of these creepers was infernal, and it struck me with lightning. I had to make a run for it, as one more lightning strike would kill me. But that was when I noticed my horse had somehow also been struck by lightning, and it had perished, its remains floating in the water. So I found another horse, and this horse was also a fast one. I started exploring the area around this village, and we found another battle tower. This one, however, was full of cave spiders, and without immunity to poison, this was very difficult to deal with. I had to heal every time I got poisoned. I was hoping that one of these cave spiders would drop a bezoar, a bauble that you can equip to give you immunity to poison. As I was healing myself in what I thought was a safe location, a zombie decided to pay me a visit. And this was an infernal zombie with choke gravity. Not a great combo. I continued trying to take out the floors of this battle tower, but the number of skeletons seemed endless. When I killed this skeleton here, an infernal guy spawned, and he was blowing up every time I attacked him. After dealing with the Geist, I walked back to the tower, and that's when I noticed a bezoar on the ground. I finally had a chance at clearing out this battle tower. At this point, I had unlocked Undershirt, which means every 60 seconds, instead of getting one-shotted by something, it will take me to half a heart. I then fought another infernal mob, this time a skeleton. And just look at that title, Ultra Ronin Skeleton the Deceiver. But a few arrows was all it took. I had finally cleared out the ground floor of this tower here. It was time to now start filling in the holes. Trying to not do what I did in the first battle tower, but guess what? I had missed a hole in the corner, and I fell 2 floors into a massive pit of mobs. There was no escape from this. All my gear was long gone. I decided to go back to the creeper structure and see what was inside. I thought the spawners had expired, but they were actually hidden. I then saw this opening in this stone brick structure, so I got closer and had a peek through to see what was on the other side. And I did not like what I saw. I managed to mine one of the spawners on the ceiling, and then I got out of there. I went back to the battle tower and started scaling up the side of it. These floors now seemed to be empty, so I destroyed the 2 spawners at the top. I then started tackling the floors below, but this was proving to be very difficult. As I was heading back to the village to heal up, I quickly noticed that I was not alone. A warg started sprinting at me, so I jumped straight in the water. But this situation quickly got much worse, as 2 more wargs decided to join the chase. However, I seemed to be doing it, taking them out one at a time. This went on for quite some time, and by the end of it, I was very dehydrated. After surviving this encounter with the wargs, I recovered and made my way back to the tower. And that's when I saw a blighted creeper, an extremely dangerous version of the original. At this stage in the game, it was important to avoid all blights, as they can easily one-shot you. While I was looking at this blight, a message suddenly appeared on my screen. The Black Plague had begun. I was far from safety, so I made a run for the village, hoping to get there before I was swarmed by dangerous foes. But I was not fast enough. Reapers, banshees, and geists closed in on me. With the Black Plague over, I tried continuing to clear out the floors below. But since I'd lost my Bezoar, the poison was a problem again. I healed up and then decided to go and mine this coal here for some experience, which ended up spawning a geonach. However, I did manage to kill it from a safe spot. I then decided to try a bit of a safer strategy. But cave spiders can still fit through 1-block gaps. I then tried shooting down at them from above. But once again, another infernal cave spider was having none of it. As I made my escape, I encountered another creature on my way out. A neck was waiting for me, And this was a very close call. At this point, I had had enough of this battle tower, so I decided to climb the mountain next to it and see what was at the top. And there were quite a few bobacles. I managed to find a waystone, so I teleported back to the village, as each village you find has its own waystone, allowing you to teleport between them. Now I was onto my third horse at this point, and it was very slow indeed, so I tamed another one to see if it was any faster, and it definitely wasn't. I returned to the mountain with some better supplies, but as I was looking at my atlas, I was ambushed by these flying creatures. I sprinted straight for the waystone and got out of there. When I returned, it seemed to be safe, so I continued, and on the other side of this mountain was a massive forest. I carefully traversed down the side of the mountain. And I started exploring this forest. I found some pixies here that drop pixie dust. This can be used to make potions of flight. And I also spotted a couple of large buildings in the distance. As I was making my way across the water here, I spotted a sea serpent, which I almost got a bit too close to. That would have ended badly. I chose a different point to cross. Once I was on the other side, I then spotted a battle tower out in the water. I started walking around so I could get a bit closer before setting up a boat. But as I was doing this, the sirens started singing, and I was lured in. Without earplugs, there was nothing I could do but wait for my demise. I had died far too close to those sirens, so there was no chance of getting my stuff back. At this point, I decided to do a bit of mining. However, this did not end very well either. I learned here that you should never set a geonac on fire, because this is what happens. With another couple of deaths under my belt, I went back to the area I was before and had a look at some of the buildings that I saw. This massive tower here seemed to be entirely made of obsidian, no chests, no spawners. And the other building was the same, nothing inside. It was now time to check out this battle tower, so I started rowing over to it, and was straight away met by my favourite mob, a cave spider, just what I wanted. However, this did give me a chance to get another bezoar. Things were going okay until I suddenly got dragged to the bottom of the ocean. It turned out to be a weight debuff from a Lacedon here, which ended up inside my boat. And since it was out of water, it seemed to be suffocating to death. I built a little platform for myself where I could heal. I needed a bezoar ASAP. This poison was ruining me. I was picking up some of the loot and experience on the ground here when I was lured in by another siren song. This was so much fun. But I did have a plan up my sleeve. I equipped my wooden planks, and as soon as the siren song had ended, I built straight up. I had no ranged weapon on me. I had to place a crafting table, turn logs into planks, and then make a boomerang to take this siren out, so I could get down safely. I picked up the shiny scales, as these are used alongside sea serpent scales to make tide armour. It was now time to check out the second floor of the battle tower, which was full of zombies. After surviving the fight, it was no longer the zombies I had to worry about. It was hypothermia. I had spent too long in the freezing cold water. I then thought of a couple of different ways that I could get experience. The first one being turning birch logs into paper and then trading this paper to librarians. Which will also unlock better enchanted book trades at the same time. I made my way to the library and started destroying the bookshelves to get some books. Since it was now winter time, I had to return back to the base as it was far too cold in that area of the map. While I was at my base, I made an iron strengthened longbow and then headed back to the library after I'd warmed up. But this did not last long. Before I knew it, I was freezing again. I made a campfire and a matchbox, but the campfire wouldn't light. The conditions were too cold. I tried to get as many trades done with the villagers before I froze to death. After all these trades, I now had enough experience to get level 16 attack. I could now wield diamond weapons. I went back to my base and took the diamond sword off the wall, but I didn't start using it yet. I wanted to wait till I had some good enchantments to put on it. I then found a Fletcher to trade string with for some more emeralds and XP. But as I was using the waypoint to go back to the village where the library was, it turned out something was waiting for me. A dragon was just wandering around the village, setting everything ablaze. I somehow managed to retrieve most of my gear, and then I went back to my base, where I tried to light another campfire, hoping that it might work indoors, but it did not. So I used some of my wool to make a full set of wool armour. This should keep me warm. Now I had less protection against enemies, but at least I won't freeze to death. I returned to the library, which was somehow untouched by the dragon, and bought a Vampirism 2 book from this librarian. The plan was to add this to the diamond sword I had taken off the wall. I returned home, and when I looked out my window, I saw this zombie here, called Showman the Forgotten. I wanted to see if I could kill this zombie and get some good loot, but he was very fast. I put another point in building here. I was now 2 points away from being able to use an anvil. I needed this to enchant my diamond sword. Since I had to wear wool armour, I couldn't exactly go and do a battle tower, so I decided to do some more mining. With some more XP and resources gathered from mining, I returned home. And there were a few cinders waiting for me. But since they were trapped, they couldn't do much. When I killed the skeleton here, I finally had enough experience to get level 12 building. Now I could enchant my diamond sword. But just as I was about to do that, a blood moon started. I quickly blocked in my horse to keep it safe, and started killing all the mobs through holes in the wall. I thought my wolf was sitting, but he decided to get up and join the fight, putting himself in harm's way. My last surviving wolf had died. So I enchanted my diamond sword and avenged him. The blood moon was now over. Thankfully my horse had survived. So I freed it, and we continued our adventure. I found myself back at this place, where I had gotten the netherrack from, and now that I had an iron pickaxe I could mine the gold. However, as I left this place, I fell into a massive hole in the ground. This was a dungeon, full of spawners. All of the mobs were armoured, and there was loads of them. But once again, I was quickly overwhelmed and had to retreat. These infernal zombies were causing a lot of problems. I was just trying to purify some water here when one dragged me in. The constant stream of zombies was showing no sign of slowing down. I had to be careful of infernals that had sticky as an effect, as they make you drop your weapon when you attack them. I was getting loads of experience from this, each level getting me closer to being able to use dragon gear, which requires level 24 attack and defense. We then both got struck by lightning. And just like that, I'd lost another horse. I was running low on supplies, so I headed back to my base. And I decided to make a ring of speed. I first made a potion ring, using a block of lapis lazuli and some gold bars. I then combined this with a block of redstone and some sugar. I was now considerably faster. The next thing I decided to make was a reforging station, using one of the anvils from outside. I then needed a bucket of lava to make a bauble reforging station, so I headed to the blacksmith's to grab some. There were some magma blocks above the lava. These are used alongside blaze powder to make strength rings. Unfortunately though, I have not been able to get my hands on any blaze rods. As I was returning with my bucket of lava, I was attacked by a warg. And this warg was not like the ones before. This was a dark warg. After this death so close to home, I then made the bauble reforging station. Now this station doesn't actually use items to reforge, only experience. After the blood moon and that dungeon, my diamond sword was in much need of repair. It was now time to head back to this battle tower and continue working our way up the floors. and this was working quite nicely, until the cave spiders came through. But it was not long before I got a bezoar. Finally, no more poison. Not long after this first bezoar, I got a second one. And a third one. I went upstairs here and quickly spotted a blighted skeleton. This was my chance to get some great loot and experience. I went from level 12 to level 30 and got silver leggings with mending and evasion. This was a great time to head home and secure my loot. I now had enough heart crystal shards to make a heart container, which permanently increases your health by 1. However, I needed 8 magic, but since I was level 30, this wasn't a problem. I then put 2 more points in attack. As I was returning to the battle tower, I noticed a sea serpent that was stuck in a tree. I realised that I had a good enough bow and plenty of arrows, so I tried shooting it from a distance. And this took quite some time, as they have a lot of health. I finally killed it and went over to retrieve my loot. I found its scales and fangs in the water. As I was walking back to the waystone, my dodge ability decided to bug out, sending me flying into a tree, almost one-shotting me. My golden undershirt saved me, but the fall finished the job. It was now time to combine the sea serpent scales with the shiny scales from the siren to make a Tide Guardian chestplate. This was a big upgrade, so I headed back to the tower to continue. Now this infernal zombie here dropped a poison stone, a really good bauble. It gives you immunity to poison, hunger, increased chance to poison enemies, and increased damage to poisoned enemies, so I equipped it straight away. I then got level 20 attack, and I now had 10 skill points, which is exactly what Battle Spirit requires. This gives you a short strength buff after killing a monster. Mobs were constantly falling through the ceiling, making surprise attacks on me. I tried to block as many arrows as I could, but in the end I was hit by one too many. I then came across another blighted skeleton. Which took me from level 6 to level 27. Wow, I love blighted skeletons. I then got 2 more Bezoar drops, one after the other. Back at the base, I realised I could smelt down my diamond horse armour to get some diamonds. While I was doing this, another event began. The Swarm.
The Swarm! Outnumbered and alone.
And I thought to myself, how hard can this be? I have immunity to poison, and it's just some bugs. But as I was being tossed around, I realised I was so wrong. I killed the remaining Vespids. and decided it was now time to make a diamond longbow. Which I tested out on some mobs near the village. I continued exploring a bit further, and walked straight into the path of a dragon who was flying above me. As I was searching for my gear, I came across a few armor sets that were out in the open. I grabbed my stuff off the ground and somehow got out of there alive. I then took the diamond armor and headed home. I once again headed back to the battle tower to finish what I started. After finding yet another bezoar, I opened the chest on this floor here without realising that it's the one that alerts the golem. The golem had destroyed the chest at the top, so I went upstairs to see if I could grab any of the loot. This was very risky. After returning home safely, I then made a diamond shield. And then went back to the tower to see what else I could get, which was of course a terrible decision. Even underwater, I was not safe from the golem's attacks. I looked everywhere for my diamond sword, but it was very likely destroyed in the blast. With my diamond sword gone, I started to head back, but that's when I was ambushed by a couple more flying creatures. I had done all I could do in that tower for now, so I decided to head back to the dungeon, where I discovered a skeleton called Lancelot Poggers. And it dropped 2 enchanted books, Advanced Thorns 2 and Magic Protection 1. At this point, there were a lot less mobs around, so I could actually check the chests. I was trying to mine the spawner here, but things went bad real fast, so I got out of there. I thought I was safe, so I decided to heal up, but that's when I got shot by a skeleton through a completely different opening. It turned out that this room here also had spawners. I went back to where I was with the plan of destroying the second spawner here, but this plan quickly changed as I spotted a blight in the distance. I placed down some dirt to block its view and looted the chests. Soon after this, I then spotted another blight, this time a rock, which I killed and then put another point in attack. I was now one level away from being able to wield dragon weapons. I left the dungeon and went and explored the defiled biome a bit more. This was very close to the village where my base was. I didn't know this at the time, but bookworms can actually be used to get some good enchantments, so I probably shouldn't have wiped them out from this biome. After killing this aspid here, I now had enough experience to get level 24 attack. I could now wield dragon weapons. All I needed to do now was kill a dragon. I went back home, put all my armour and baubles in a chest, made some more arrows, and I headed out in search of a dragon. And I knew exactly which one I was going for. It was time to get my revenge. But this was short-lived, as a ball of fire hit me right in the back. I kept trying, occasionally hitting the dragon. I made a tunnel in an attempt to get closer to the dragon. But when I tried to kill the skeleton here, I was absolutely obliterated. I then noticed these big hairy beasts in the distance. And they were right next to my gear. I managed to punch one of them to death, grab my weapon, and then kill the other one. But as I was returning home to heal and resupply, there was another blood moon. Here we go again. I made it back home in time and started preparing the house for the night ahead. And then I got to work. I eventually realised that I should probably equip my armour. I saw this huge blighted creature in the distance, so I decided to see if I could take it out. This turned out to be a big mistake, as I was almost one-shotted, saved by the golden undershirt. It was now morning time, so I left the house to clear out the remaining mobs. An infernal zombie decided to follow me back into my house, where things got a little bit close. I realised that if I was going to defeat this dragon, I would need to enchant my diamond bow with infinity, as I was running out of arrows far too quickly. This was going to require a lot of experience, so I started making a farm, because I had a lot of bones that I could turn into bone meal. With the beginnings of a farm in place, I went to the library to get some more books. While I was doing this though, I uncovered another chest, and this chest had some nice enchantments in it. I then turned all these books into bookshelves to go around my enchantment table. However, when I went to go and place it down, I forgot that I needed level 12 magic, and I was only level 8. At this point in time, I was only one level away from level 12 farming, which is what I needed to use bone meal, so I put another point in farming, and made my way over to this massive mound of bone blocks that was next to the village. Combining the 4 stacks of bones with all these bone blocks was going to give me a massive amount of bone meal. I filled my entire hotbar with bone meal and got started right away. I had a diamond bow to enchant. After using most of my bone meal, I now had level 12 magic, so I placed down my enchantment table and the bookshelves. It was time to get infinity on my diamond bow. However, this ended up taking a very long time, as I continuously re-rolled the enchantment on the bow, trying to get infinity. But finally, after at least 40 enchantment rerolls, I got the infinity enchantment. All was left now was to get level 30. It was night time, so I decided to hunt down some mobs to get some extra experience. But it turned out I was the one that was being hunted. I filled my hotbar with bone meal again, and I continued harvesting crops. But when I was destroying this piece of wheat here, a Triffid spawned. After killing the Silex here, I then reached level 30. It was now time to enchant my diamond bow with infinity. I didn't just get infinity though, I also got multi-shot too, which was going to be very useful when trying to hit this dragon. I made my way back to the dragon. It was time to end this, once and for all. I was waiting for the dragon to perch, and then looking around to see if I could get a good shot at it. But after many attempts of trying to shoot the dragon after it had landed, I finally got a good angle at it. I thought I almost had it, but it took to the skies once more. But the next time it landed, I was waiting. And after a long, grueling battle, the dragon was dead. But as I made my way over to it, I realised I had forgotten the glass bottles. These are needed to collect its blood. I quickly went home, made some glass bottles, and returned to the dragon. However, this was my very first time killing a dragon, so I was not aware that if you fill up too many bottles with blood, it will remove the scales, preventing you from getting any. This means that I ended up with 5 bottles of dragon blood, 7 bones, and a dragon skull, but no dragon scales, so I could not make any armour at all. But I could at least make a dragon weapon, so I headed home and did just that. I first made some chain links, and then combined this with 2 dragon bones to make dragon bone nunchucks, which I added flames to by using the dragon's blood. I then reforged these nunchucks as the quality was not good. And there it is, I had killed my very first dragon and made flamed dragon bone nunchucks. But with no dragon scales to make the armour, my journey continues. I then enchanted my nunchucks with mending to prevent them from breaking. And I also placed a dragon skull on the wall, which looks pretty awesome. I gathered some more XP from farming and put another level in defense. I was now 2 levels away from being able to equip dragon armor. But I first had to find another dragon. So I explored the surrounding areas looking for one. and that's when I came across a massive city. So I decided to take a look around. I found a couple of enchanted books. And a dog called Boomer. I then said farewell to this city, and I continued looking for a dragon. And that's when I remembered the dragon that had set that village ablaze. I went back to the village, and there it was. But not long after I started firing arrows at it, another event happened.
Sub-Zero! Freeze in fear!
I was hoping that maybe if I teleported out of there, I would be safe. But that was not the case. My base was surrounded by these creatures. As I was taking these creatures down one by one, an Argus spawned and made its way right for me. With Sub-Zero now over, it was time to head back to the dragon. But just before doing that, I managed to get another heart crystal shard, which meant I now had enough to make another heart container, further increasing my maximum health. I was trying to find a good vantage point to shoot this dragon from, but I seemed to be just out of range. So I made a platform in an attempt to get closer. This, however, was not working either. So I ended up trying a different strategy. I continued to shoot the dragon, and if it flew towards me, I made a run for it, and hid behind a building. I repeated this strategy over and over again, and it was going well, until this happened. With help from the Aegis that were protecting the village, we managed to defeat the dragon, and this village was safe once more. I looted the dragon's corpse. And headed home. It was now time to make my dragon armour. But just before doing that, I used a dragon skull and dragon heart to make a dragon canteen. This automatically purifies all your drinking water. It was now time for the dragon armour. I made a chestplate, leggings, and a helmet. But unfortunately, I was 3 scales short of making the boots. I tried to put the armour on, but forgot that I was 1 level away from being able to wear it. But that's when I stepped up my house and noticed a blighted kobold in the distance. And when I killed it, I got 24 levels, which was somehow exactly what I needed. Thank you, kobold, for your perfect timing. I put the final point in defense and equipped my dragon armor. I then decided to use my last remaining dragon scale to reforge the dragon chestplate, but this didn't go very well, as I actually made the quality worse. It was winter time again, and without liners to put on my armour, I was freezing to death. So I had to resort back to my wool armour to keep me alive. I then thought to myself, what would be a nice warm place to go during the winter? So I went to the nether. Which was not the smartest of ideas. I may have dragon armour, but none of it is enchanted. I picked up my gear, but I couldn't find my dragon leggings. I was looking everywhere, but there was still no sign of them. I headed home, dropped off my items, and went back to try and find the leggings. And that's when I found them, hiding behind some nether wart. That was a close one. I wanted to put some more enchantments on my dragon nunchucks, so I headed back to the library and bought the Vampirism 2 book. I went back to the nether portal and discovered that there was something underneath it, so I investigated and found this underground village surrounded by lava. I took a look around and found some nice enchanted books in this chest here, as well as this grue that wanted me dead. But it ended up fighting a skeleton, so I decided to take on the winner. I quickly found that this village was not very safe, as there were lots of monsters on the outskirts. When investigating this cave further, I found a structure here covered in flaming netherrack, and it had a chest in the centre. Unfortunately though, there was nothing special in the chest. There turned out to be this spawner at the back of the structure here. And it spawned a lot of mobs all at once. And this quickly got out of hand. The vampirism on my nunchucks was keeping me alive. It was all going to plan until a spectre pulled me straight into the lava. Fortunately, most of my gear survived the lava, so I continued exploring this cave. When I mined this redstone here, a vapula spawned. But in the end, I managed to kill it. I then decided it was time to leave this cave. But this shade had other plans. After killing this Gru, I went back to pick up some experience, and that's when I randomly died. And I'm still not sure how, as there were no effects on me, and the Gru had been dead for several seconds. I grabbed my stuff, killed a spectre, and headed home. And that's when I realised my dragon leggings were gone. My death was too long ago, so they had definitely despawned. With many weeks of winter still remaining, and no liners on my armour to keep me warm, there was not much else I could do right now. So I decided that this was a good time to leave my journey here. I was pleased with what I'd accomplished. I had killed 2 dragons, made dragon armour, and dragon nunchucks. And just before I end the video, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. This video took me over 100 hours to make, so I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. But that's all from me for now, and I'll hopefully see you in the next adventure.